We're now turning to theme 2 in the conference, which is collaboration through joint working. And in autumn last year, the Improvement Service, COSLA and SOLACE, arranged a workshop to explore closer alignment between economic development, planning and transport. Representatives from HOPS, SLAED and SCOTS and other representative professional groupings in local government got together and shared some ideas about how collaboration could operate. A second meeting took place on Monday of this week, which some of us were at, and that very much targeted future opportunities for joint working. That discussion couldn't have been better planned in terms of preparation for this conference. So we did take the opportunity, some of us who were there at COSLA on Monday, to share some ideas. So I'm delighted to be able to fulfill one of the actions that we identified last autumn, which was to welcome to each other's conferences and to think about forms of collaboration. So welcome to SCOTS and to SLAED to the HOPS conference, and I invite you to share your thoughts about collaboration and the added value that we could achieve of working together on some of the challenges we face in local government. First of all, Stuart.
David, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stuart Turner. I am currently Head of Roads in the Ayrshire Roads Alliance. It's my day job, but really this is my day job as well. I think it's really important that as planning, as transport professionals, that we meet with you as planning professionals as well. And what I'm going to do over the next 10 minutes, that's all we've been allocated, is just to try and explain to you where we are with collaboration, not necessarily just in the SCOTS position, maybe we're having a wee look at HOPS as well, but how we're collaborating across the country. And I suppose I'll ask you a certain number of questions at the end, and really the major one which I'll be asking you is, are we really that good at collaboration? Well, let's see if we are when I put all these slides up. SCOTS, we are the Society of Chief Officers of Transportation in Scotland. Is a lovely title. Somebody dreamed it up to make sure that we got a name. SLAED were similar, HOPS are similar as well. We are 32 local authorities and we are 7 regional transport partnerships, and we invite the National Transport team in Transport Scotland there as well. So, it's very similar, and I think one thing that's really important to express at the moment, I'm a local government officer, and most of the folk in this room are local government officers as well. We have a common goal to make the lives of the folk out there better, whether it's the roads or through the planning process. So I think we recognise that the more collaboration we do, whether it's at strategic level, as I've said today, or across the 32 local authorities, how much better that will be. We have a vision, so you can take that in as I run through the next few slides. It's similar to what you have in HOPS, and I'll show you our purpose as well. We have a mission statement. We're dead clever. So we've got a mission statement and a vision, and we've also got objectives. And you can read through some of the objectives as well, but it's all about sustainable economic growth, exactly the same as you. So we've all got a common goal to get there. And on that basis, it's so important we collaborate as the three bodies here, but also in the 32 councils as well, just to give you some background to what we have got. And these are your purposes, if that's a plural of purpose, and you can see all the things you have there. You know what they are. You do that in your own local authorities 32 times. In our case, 32 times plus 7 regional transport partnerships. It's duplication. There's some more there. So what I thought I would do is just run through where we are in Scotland when we collaborate and just show you some maps. It's all meant to be map-based, isn't it? So the old folk in the room will remember this. This is pre-1996, and that's what the map of Scotland looked like. Was that good? Was that bad? Well, we had regional councils and we had district councils, so much better now in unity authority, but equally with the 32 there is some view that it's too much duplication. We've got the Roads Collaboration Programme, so we were told many years ago to collaborate a bit better, so we've done a bit of collaboration. So that's the map of Scotland when it comes to roads collaboration. Here's a cracking one there from Argyll and Bute right round to Stonehaven for the northern one. It's just a day's drive to get there. But you'll see the grey area there, which are the Fries and Galloway and Ayrshires. Don't really do a great deal of collaboration. Orkney and Shetland don't do a great deal. So that's okay, they work to a degree. We've got the regional transport partnership areas, I talked about them, there's 7 of them. You just notice the map of Scotland just sort of moving about all the time. It's okay, it gets worse as we move forward. Because the city deals are different as well, and that's only the city deals. More and more duplication and differences all over the country. And then we've got the National Health Service regions. They're different as well, so wherever you live, you'll be on there, slightly different. Then we've got the fire service regions, they're different as well, and turning to the police, well, they're different as well. They're command areas. We know we've got Police Scotland, and I suppose what I'm doing, taking a step back, it is so important that we try and deal with what we've got in those charts there and try and deliver better services. We have the Road Scotland Act, one Act of Parliament and a variety of other ones. You've got the Town and Country Planning Act. Yeah, but we still have to reinvent the wheel 32 times. So that's why it's so important that across the country, through SCOTS, through SLAED and through HOPS, we actually work collaboratively better. I'll just put the last map up, and this is the one I like the best. And you'll probably say, what's that got to do with the price of steam? And the answer is, this is the map of Scotland with the 32 authorities, and it's the road condition in the country in which we're in, excluding trunk roads, because we have no idea what their road condition really is. What does that show? Well, it actually shows the worst roads in the west of Scotland, the best roads in the east of Scotland, and that's where it is driest, and that is where it is wettest. So when your roads engineers speak to you about the road condition, be mindful of this map, which shows Argyll and Bute to be the worst roads and the northeast of Scotland and East Lothian to be the best. But you can tell them that's due to the weather conditions. So, why and how do we collaborate in SCOTS? We had the 1996 reorganisation. That's come and gone. We didn't do a very good job round about that time. All we did was create big departments. Lots and lots of departments, lots of directors, and they didn't really collaborate very well across the piece. And as years have moved on, we've got less and less departments. Nobody's at the top table. Don't worry, planners, I know you're not at the top table. We aren't either, because it's an accountant or it's somebody else who's dealing with social work or education, because that's the main issues that Scotland has got. So we're going through austerity. Or no, we're going through austerity. But we also had the National Roads Maintenance Review undertaken in 2010. And that more or less said, your roads are in poor condition, sort it out, Scotland. So 7 or 8 years later, Audit Scotland came back and said, your collaboration is painfully slow. So yeah, we can demonstrate to a degree that we have some, but it's not good enough. So I'm the harbinger of doom. I think the collaboration that we have got in Scotland, there is some really good best practice out there. But there's lots of packages within Scotland that we need to get better. So we need to get better in SCOTS. I can't speak specifically for HOPS, but I'm sure you have the same issues that you want to try and improve on as well. So future collaboration, that's what we've got on the go at the moment. And I put the Planning Scotland bill, it's important to us as well. That's going to affect developments as they move forward through Scotland. Transport Scotland bill is important. The one you probably know most about in that is about pavement parking, which is creating a lot of angst because it involves us all, because we all do, we're all car drivers and we all probably park on the pavement. We all say the reason for that is there's nobody else to park, and Parliament is trying their best to be as pragmatic as possible with that. For your information, somebody thought a good idea would be to come up with a 1.5 metre gap on a pavement to allow people to be able to get their pram or their wheelchair past, and that seems quite pragmatic to me. But one person has commented that it's difficult to actually measure 1.5 metres because is it to the which part of the car and which part of the back of the pavement. So you just imagine this going where it is. Transport Scotland bill has also got low emission zones, it's got issues in buses, and it's got issues in smart ticketing, amongst other things. So lots of issues which affect you as planners, lots of things that affect us. Your planning bill affects us as well. National Transport Strategy is on the way at the moment with Transport Scotland, so that's going to be published in the draft at the end of July. What's in there is going to affect planning in Scotland, and out of that document will come the Strategic Transport Projects Review, which is a review of all the major projects in Scotland. So we'll see what comes from that, and we've got, at some stage in the future, we've all got to deal with the national planning framework. So, as David said earlier on, I was at the meeting on Monday. It was really good. The first meeting, it was clearly just seeing who everybody was, testing the waters, but clearly what we had on Monday was 3 bodies wanted to make a difference to Scotland, and I'm sure that we actually can. So I'm just going to leave you with a few questions. First one is, do we need to collaborate more? Do we need to collaborate differently? And as we're all working towards sustainable growth or economic growth, the end goal is the same, I would say. That's what we're trying to do, make it better for the people of Scotland. We have to ensure that we are on the same path as soon as possible. So it's a big circle, and it's really important that you're not at the other side of the circle or the other side of the table, coming to meet in the middle. So we must increase collaboration. So thank you very much for the invitation. Hopefully that gives you some background. Hopefully I haven't been too negative. Maybe I have been. That's for you to discuss later on. I'm just going to pass you over to Mike McGuinness now, who's from SLAED, and he'll give you a bit of background to who he is as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart, and thank you very much to David, Leslie and the team at HOPS for inviting us along today. My name is Michael McGuinness. I work in a day job at Western Bartonshire Council and look after economic development and regeneration. I'm also the chair of the PLACE group within SLAED. Most of you are thinking SLAED, is that noddy hold on the guys? No. We are the national voice for local economic development across the 32 local authorities. And very similar to yourselves in SCOTS, we promote sustainable economic development. We promote best practice and economic impact as far as economic development goes, and inform and influence policy and programmes. And a good example, which has already been alluded to, is where we get involved involved very much from the economic growth part of the transport strategy and also the planning bill. So we contributed significantly to that, and looking forward to see how that all comes out. Collaboration. I kind of googled it and found this. You know, what is collaboration all about? And I very much think of it in my day job, what I do every day, working with different departments within the local authority, working right across the local authority and with all the developers and partners we have. And they range significantly, so there's a number of them here today. Clyde Planner here, the National Park are here, Loch Lomond Tossics National Park, obviously SEPA, education, social work, etc. There's a whole raft of different organisations we collaborate with. I think we also get slightly frustrated that, I've only been working in local authority for 8 years. I used to work in the private sector, and I was a developer for a while. And so don't throw too many things at me. I think we also often find that sometimes the tail wags the dog, and process drives behaviour. So if you're given a set of tools to work with, you use those tools in different ways. And I think it's important that we consider how we use the process and consider how we engage with various different people, particularly developers, to make sure that the tail's not wagging the dog. I think various different tools we've been using. The place-based tool you hear about more tomorrow is a very effective mechanism. In Western Bartonshire Council we have a design panel which has been very influential in some of the larger developments. And again, you'll hear about that from my colleague Ashley tomorrow. I think that's again important, how we engage with all developers. We always say that, and my colleagues from planning always say to me when we deal with businesses who sometimes come to us first, usually looking for grants. Have you spoke to planning? Oh, well, we're thinking about it. We haven't quite got our plans ready. Why don't we talk to them earlier? And I think it's really important, and you guys always tell us, the economic development people, get them to speak to us as early as possible. Early engagement in any form and all form of collaboration is really important. And again, it is about setting expectations, particularly how long it's going to take. I think as developers, they get very frustrated. They just think it's dead easy for you guys. We know it's dead complicated. Another thing that happens, I suppose, when I moved into local authority, and my only job has been in Western Marshall Council in the last 7-8 years, we lived in some monstrous building up in Garshake, if any of you have ever been there. It's horrendous. It's now getting demolished, and in silos, there's lots of wee offices, and we all sat in these wee offices, and when I arrived, I go, there's your office, Michael. I'm like, why do I want an office? I work with my people, where are they? Oh, they're across the way and over there, and some of them are down the road. And we've changed that in our council. Nobody has an office anymore. Chief Executive doesn't have an office. We all work in open plan, and it makes such a difference in how we collaborate and how we engage. Sometimes it's a bit painful, people coming up and talk to you at your desk, but hey-ho, I think it's a huge change and a difference in the culture of the organisation if you're not stuck in different rooms in different parts of the building, etc. So I think physical changes, partitions, are important to how we collaborate and how we engage with people. And generally, it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? It's all about communication. It's how we engage and the language we speak. In the table earlier on there in the session, we talked about, from the previous session, I think it was important, my view was, well, maybe we need to start thinking about what negotiation skills we have, as you have as planners, when you're talking to the likes of developers. Because many developers, their priority is money. And it's about how do they get the best return for their investment in many cases, not all cases, but many cases. And I think it's about how do we understand what their challenges are, and for them to speak sometimes our language, and for us to speak sometimes their language. I think there's some kind of an element of negotiation skills that we maybe need to learn if we need to be more innovative and more in the pressure we're under financially to how we engage with various developers. So I think that's, again, for me, very important. I think I'm kind of a positive kind of guy. I think what's working for us, and my experience, limited as it is, I look after business support and business gateway, and we work with all the businesses in our area. And again, this is right across Scotland in terms of particularly business gateway. So we are meeting with businesses all the time. Why can't I win any contacts with council? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And planning are giving me a hard time. You know, we speak to these guys, and I think it's important that you guys engage, as my colleagues do with my team in business support, to engage with the businesses who are looking to expand their premises, build new properties, etc. So I think that's quite important, to use the mechanisms that are there, the people who are there who do engage with the private sector in this case. The developers, as I said earlier, they tend to come to the regeneration people. Again, my team, because they're looking for grants in many cases. You know, I've got a site that's got some problems. Are there any grants to fix it? No, I'm sorry, there's no grants for that, unfortunately, anymore. Not many, unless you've got vacant development land fund, which I won't go into. So I think it's important that you recognise that the developers and the housing builders engage often with different departments within your local authority, and just to have those connections is really important. We have quarterly meetings with our roads colleagues, planning, asset management, all together. I think that's really effective in terms of understanding what the pressures our planning colleagues are under, what pressures we're under in terms of some of the developments work we're doing, and we deal with a lot of the aspects like parking and all that kind of good stuff in meetings and flush them out together and collectively, and that's us really collaborating on a daily basis. It's just job as usual. I suppose I like the point that Mark Hand from Wales made earlier. Anything that would just a perceived bureaucratic process, enablers, not controllers. I think that was quite apt, actually. I think that is important, the way you need to be more innovative. There's less resources available. You need to be able to maybe negotiate with developers, for example, and how do you enable things to happen rather than using some of the policies and rules and regulations you have as sticks. I think importantly, and you'll hear this all the time, the LDPs process can be challenging, it takes a long time, but I think ultimately it's really important that we set our stall out as a local authority through planning. What is it we aspire to see? We want to make sure that we utilise the brownfield sites and get them developed first before we touch any of our beautiful green fields. We all understand that. I think having LDPs that are just simple and clear so that we don't end up leading people up the garden path. I think also people just want to know when things are happening. So again, back to communications, providing the right time frame. When is it going to go to planning? When is it going to get there? What's it going to take? There's a long process in many cases, so I think it's just been upfront and been honest about how long that can take. And as I said, we we do, and I've experienced it with other colleagues through SLAED, where there was some really good engagement right across different departments and different public sectors and agencies. And I think a lot of that is working. We just need to do it a bit slicker and with less resources. Consultation is always a challenge for everybody. We had some works done in some roads, and apparently some 2 businesses we never spoke to, never consulted, although we spent about 6 months consulting with every single other person, but not these 2 people. So again, you just need to be careful on who you're consulting with and the process for doing that. So I'd just like to say, keep engaging, keep communicating, and I think we'll all have a great time. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Forbes Barron here on behalf of HOPS. Since about 2 hours ago, I'm the Senior Vice Chair and I work in Glasgow. A bit literal person at times, so the slide there, I was asked what does collaboration through joint working look like. So that's one version of it. The dictionary version of it would be, in the public sector, collaborative business planning would be synchronizing data from various sources, both within and outside the organization. I think the important part there is it's bringing evidence and data together to inform collaboration. We have colleagues here this afternoon from SLAED and from the SCOTS as well. I think that's particularly useful since we are trying to look at collaboration to deliver the purposes of the planning bill. And for our workshop session later on, we obviously want to have some thoughts around about that to sort of stimulate discussion. So maybe to take you through some thoughts on that just now. The purpose of planning reform was to strengthen the planning system's contribution to inclusive growth. So we've got SLAED here. Housing and infrastructure delivery. We've got SCOTS and we've got SLAED as well. And empowering communities. So I've said before, I think it was in the planning magazine this week, planning is the glue within all that. And I think we underestimate at our own peril just how important we are to that. The HOPS strategic aims for planning reform, remind ourselves, we've covered it already today, but I'll say it again. A simplified and streamlined planning system, which is adequately resourced, and which repositions planning as an enabler and facilitator. But the outcome on all that is in terms of place. It's what brings us all together within the organisations represented this afternoon, and also the other public agencies and all the other investors and stakeholders in the system. It's where we all work, it's where we play, it affects our health, well-being, it affects our prosperity. If we look towards collaboration, I think the areas of collaboration have already been outlined in terms of the planning bill. Now the focus of those proposals was around about regional partnership working, improving spatial planning policy, stronger development plans, making plans that deliver, closing the gap between the consent and delivery. So there's important issues around about that. Embedding infrastructure at the front end, developing the skills, making better use of resources in those decision making there, and innovation and future-proofing digital transformation of planning. So when we're at our table sessions, I think don't try and reinvent the wheel, kind of take ourselves back to what we already know in terms of the bill and what we're expected to deliver around about. We also have a lot of clarity anyway in terms of what the outputs we're expected to achieve across the public sector are. We have the national performance framework, which aligns with the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. The SBP centres around these as well, and also notes that we should have inclusive and engaging all interests as early and effectively as possible. So if we're collaborating, it's got to be early and effective to get the outcomes of a successful, sustainable place, low carbon place, natural resilient place, a more connected place. And if for no other reason, if we're thinking of in terms of our self-interest, the National Performance Framework, if we don't perform against that, that affects our block grant allocations. So if we're talking about resources, we need to make sure that we deliver on this. The targets in the National Performance Framework, they tie across to some of our fellow professional bodies. I noticed looking at the SLAED business plan, talks about attractive place for doing business, realising our full economic potential, better educated, better skilled. We also talk about sustainable places where we have access to amenities and services. Importantly, the national framework says that we have to secure a step change with what we do. Now, given all that we've heard around about the resourcing issues that we will face over the coming years as fellow planning authorities in the main, we're going to have to think quite smart about that. And you can't be smart if you have targets that are not potentially smart. I take my hats off to engineers because they're really good at measuring things. When they talk about safer places, they look at how many people die on the roads. Planning's not quite so simple as that, but we have to, I think, work to common objectives. I think some of these other professional groups can assist us in collaborating because they have measurable targets. SLAED talks about inclusive growth, allowing for reduction in the proportion of individuals living in poverty, access to local green space. They also look at as well in terms of access to healthcare, in terms of sustainable travel, because that actually matters in terms of whether people actually are able to be part of the workforce and be economically assisting the economy, fulfilling society's full potential. So we come together around placemaking. And in terms of that front-end effect, I think we've got some good models already. The Key Agencies Group was set up by the Scottish Government back in 2008, and that followed the original round of planning reform. And in the last couple of years, the Key Agencies Group has been working alongside 8 local authorities, local development plan teams, to front-end an awful lot of the strategic data and information. So that links in with the Digital Planning Transformation Programme as well. Now, I think Helen Fallis from the British Geological Society may be here today. She's talking about having a stand. She's a part of that Key Agencies Group, and she's telling me that there's emerging consensus between the local development plan teams and that group about the widest suite of environmental information, which is potentially useful for local development plan preparation. That sounds a bit intellectual, but what that means is that at the front end of a local plan, if you have strategic information, you're able to, for example, assist in housing delivery, more proportionally into areas where you have, for example, contaminated sites, because you can perhaps intelligently utilize limited resources to divert green space, to divert housing land, to divert economic land. Also potentially links into the work of the Scottish Land Commission and the Vacant and Derelict Land Task Force. In my own authority in Glasgow, Helen Fallis was an embedded fellowship at one point around about 3D mapping in the city and city region to allow us front-end information about where we can and cannot put development appropriately in terms of placemaking. I wouldn't underestimate the importance of culture in terms of collaboration. I think at the earlier session at my own table, we talked about culture being generally fairly positive, but we've all got our strengths and weaknesses. And in the real world of collaboration, if you look at that, there's some visuals around about that, we're all pretty different, and we all have to recognize that we bring strengths to that process, but we importantly have to work around common outcomes. We all agree on collaboration, it's the theme of our session today, and co-production. But squaring that circle is not possible without good communication and good coordination. And the Scottish Government are signed up for collaboration. They are within the amendments around the planning bill, talk about co-production of the national planning framework, and I hope that's true. They're talking about collaboration around about regional partnership working, which I think is probably an appropriate level to pitch it at in terms of the national diverse picture. And the Scottish Government have themselves commissioned research on digital planning, developing skills and behaviours, and shared services. So these are important components of us making sure that we can collaborate. In terms of coming together for joint working at a practical level, I'd make a couple of observations round about how that's achieved. At the present time, the UK government, I think, has put £1.3 billion across Scotland into growth deals and city region deals, with substantial matching funding in many cases by Scottish Government and sourcing from local authorities too. And it's not therefore surprising that in these cases where there's people come together to utilise that funding, that collaboration is very strong, or stronger than it was before. Equally, that will not always be the case. So what do we do in circumstances where that's not the case? An example of that might be the Section 7 consents under the Sewerage Scotland Act, where it's taken us 10 years to get to a position where, my understanding is that there are currently 8 authorities amongst the 32 have actually agreed it. 14 are still in discussion, 1's declined, and 9 is still to confirm. Now that is about something concerning SUDs, which are clearly a good idea in principle, but it comes down to resourcing in terms of who maintains what. So collaboration sometimes it has to be done within the context of funding as well, as an important element of what informs that. We've mentioned that early on this week we had the second local government professionals group meeting in Edinburgh, and I think that was particularly positive. As a practical implementation point, there's a current public health reform consultation event until mid-July. If you look at the components within that, we're talking about having a short life working group between HOPS, SLAED and SCOTS to deliver on public health and place. Now, SLAED is saying within that health and mental health is a barrier to employment, as I mentioned before. SCOTS are talking about it in terms of active travel, and we all agreed that we would collaborate around about that. And I think that we can see that the message, if we make the message link, the message is more powerful and it can have much more of an influence upon both resources, but also the utilisation of those resources. And finally, I mean, here's a list of all the components for collaboration needs. They're self-evident. I'd highlight in terms of leadership, because that's the session before. We have common issues, we have common outcomes, and we have to focus within those upon place. In terms of timescales for collaboration, we should, I think, differentiate between short-term wins, the medium-term, and the longer-term. If you think in terms of city deals, the growth deals, these have got 10-year spend horizons. The Section 7 consents I mentioned, we're 10 years down the line and we're still nowhere near being there as yet. Therefore, given those timescales, it's important we have a culture of trust as well. And I think as professional bodies, we have to support that. So that's what I have to say. So, David, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Forbes.